Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Molly, and today we have a fun activity. It is finally time to harvest my jujube. Now, I live in Utah, zone 6/7, and the jujube behind me has been in the ground since about 2008. It's one of the first trees that I purchased and planted when I came here. Now, if you haven't heard of a jujube, another name for it is Chinese date, and they are extremely easy to grow in Utah. They're native from Asia, and they do like really hot, warm weather, but even our shorter climates here in Utah seem to do really well for it. Mine used to get part shade when it was young. Now it's above the roof, so it's getting full sun. And let me show you what the jujube fruits look like and talk to you a little bit more about them. Now, when I looked it up, it said jujube trees can get 20 or 30 feet tall. And I figured that's about how tall mine would get if I let it. We prune it back heavily every year. This is a one-story house, and let's say it's a one-story house with a daylight ceiling. So I think my roof line is about 20 feet tall. And this likes to grow above it every year by about 5 to 8 feet. So my jujube tree is probably about 20 to 28 feet tall, and we do prune it to the roof line every year. It is surrounded by lawn, and it doesn't get separate water from the lawn other than I do have a soaker hose under here that waters my service berries. And that runs once every 2 weeks, and it runs for about an hour. So this jujube tree does get quite a bit of water. Actually, my lawn is only watered twice a week for 20 minutes with rotor heads. So it does put down quite a bit of water. This area is never really completely dry, except for this time of year because the irrigation has been turned off and we haven't had rain. But the trees are going dormant at this point, and I know that the soil is moist at least an inch down. So if it wasn't moist, I probably would water this tree again. So jujubes can tolerate drier conditions. I know they grow in Nevada near Las Vegas. They can grow in Arizona. They grow a lot of different areas. And I think that this tree is right along the hardiness zone here in Utah, where it can tolerate. It says it's hardy to zone 7, maybe zone 6, but I know this tree has seen a zone 5 winter. Now, the one thing that does save this tree from cold weather is it does not put out its branches till almost June. It's one of the later trees in my yard to actually leaf out. So it does skip all of those late frosts. Now, if you look at the branches, they're starting to look a bit weepy, a bit dry. But what that means is this tree is starting to go dormant. It does not go through a color change. Instead, what happens is the leaves start to look like that. And then actually all of the branchlets will fall to the ground. When I say branchlet, everything that is green right here, that these leaves are attached to. Let's see if I can actually get a good shot of that. From this point right here, you see that little swollen point where the branches came out? Everything will fall to the ground. So everything that this little jujube and all the leaves that are attached to this whole stem breaks off and falls to the ground. Now, the only fertilizer that this fruit tree gets is the lawn fertilizer that I put down, but I know that jujube trees do not really need fertilizer. They are absolutely fine without it. So these are really great hardy trees, and they produce heavily. You can see up in the branches there how many fruits there are. They're just everywhere. And this is the stage that I love to eat them. When jujubes are at this stage, just before they start to get a little soft, so they will dehydrate on the tree. I don't like them as much dehydrated on the tree as I do fresh. But while they're still firm and this golden color, they are very, very sweet and have a very complex flavor, and they're still crunchy. Once they start to soften and dehydrate down a little bit, they get a little bit mealy, but they're still excellent to be candied. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to harvest all the fruit off this tree. I'm going to show you my method of harvesting a jujube tree because it's a little different than I harvest my other trees. And then we're going to go inside and candy my jujubes. I absolutely love candied jujubes. I do like dehydrated jujubes without candying them, but not as much as I like the candied ones. So whatever I don't candy is going to be given away. I've already gone through and picked up everything that has fallen on the ground. These are the ones that have the bird pecks on them and that are starting to rot already. Now, when my tree was younger, actually only up to about 3 years ago, I was able to shake the trunk and get most of the jujubes off of the tree. But my tree has matured to the point now that there's no real give or flex in the trunk, so when I shake it, hardly anything comes down. Let me see what I can get just by shaking the tree, if anything. If not, then we're going to use the ladder and my pole and just knock the branches, and everything should fall right off the tree because they're actually ready to be harvested right now. Now, I have to say it was so much easier when I could just shake my tree and harvest it. But I see we're going to get some of them off. Let's see how many we can get off. Actually, we got quite a few. Let's try it again on this side. Well, that's all we're going to get just by shaking the tree. So here we go. Let's see what we can get without the ladder first. Now we've knocked as many off the tree as we can reach. A lot of the leaves came down. As you can see, they do come off with the full stem, not individual leaves. So we've got a lot to clean up. Let's start that process. See how many we got. Now these are the ones that I consider bad. There's little deformed ones that are split and dehydrating, and then ones that have bird nibbles on them. They definitely don't last very long and they don't taste very good after they look like that. And then ones that have started to die down too much. Those are the ones that I get rid of. The ones that I keep are shiny and firm and this color, and we'll have a lot of them. Okay, so we're finished. There's still a few left up at the top, not too many, but those will come down in the next storms. We do have several storms slated to happen in the next week. We're actually going to get a hard freeze, I think, next Thursday. So it's going to be fall. But this makes it feel like fall to me. These are the good ones. I'll process as many as I can and as many as I want, and then I'll give away the rest. And then that is the bad ones. That's a few days later. I'm sorry about the noise in the background. It is the day before our first fall freeze, and we've got a lot of neighbors getting ready for that. But it took a little while, and I was finally able to finish preserving my jujubes. Now I candied them, and I was going to film it, but I was just too tired. It took me until about 2 in the morning to get it done without filming it, but I did take several pictures along the way. Now, I will link the recipe down below. I got it from the California Rare Fruit Growers recipe book. And the first thing that I did is wash all of the fruit. And that took a while. I did about a full bucket of fruit. That's what fit in my sink. And what I found is if I do a full bucket of fruit, that makes about 8 quart bags of the candied jujubes, and that's enough to last me for a year. So I washed them and then I chopped them up. The recipe calls to candy them whole, but I haven't candied them whole since the first year that I did it. When you candy them whole, you have the seed in the center to deal with, and it makes it unpleasant. You have to cut them up afterwards, and it seems like you waste a little bit more fruit doing that. So I cut them up, and I have a picture of how I cut them up. I just slice off both ends and then just slice them up. Make them into bite-sized pieces. And that filled up my largest enameled canning pot. Now the recipe calls for 5½ cups of sugar, 5½ cups of water to 3 pounds of jujubes. What I do is I just throw all the jujubes in my pot, pour water into it, measure it as I go until the jujubes are just covered. And then whatever amount that is, I take half the sugar. I don't do one-on-one, I do half the sugar and it turns out good. The one thing that I do not eliminate though is the corn syrup. Now I dislike using corn syrup as much as the next person, but this recipe really does not work without it. So after you add the sugar and the corn syrup, you mix it all up and then you boil it. It takes a while to get up to boil, but you boil it for a half an hour and then you cool it off and leave it in a cold place overnight. You could put it in your refrigerator, but it's so cold at nights here. It's not quite freezing, but it's so cold that it's like putting them in the refrigerator when I put them outside. So I just stick them outside in a covered pot overnight. Then the next morning you bring them back in, boil them again for another 30 minutes, and then you strain out the syrup. And I actually can the syrup. It makes a wonderful syrup. So I can the syrup and then I dehydrate the jujubes. Now, as I said, it gives me 8 quart bags of jujubes, and I just store them in a cool spot down underneath my stairs. I have a little tiny room with shelves in it that's uninsulated, so it stays cool there over the winter, and it actually stays cool in the summer too. So that's how I candy my jujubes. You can dehydrate them if you would like. Dehydrated jujubes are good for savory dishes and for teas. I just don't use them as much when they're not candied, so I have several left from last year that I dehydrated. So I would love to hear how you use your jujubes, especially how you use your just plain dehydrated ones. I would love to be able to use more of those because I actually had half a 5-gallon pail of jujubes that I donated to other people because I knew I wasn't going to be able to use them. Other people were able to use them, but I would love to be able to use them myself if possible. So hopefully this video is helpful for you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.